Thank you, I guess. Can everybody hear me? Good. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and speak about local television. We've been involved in bidding for the local television license for Leeds for close to 2 years now. And it's just absolutely fantastic just to be awarded the license, despite very, very strong competition from Leeds United Football Club and Your TV, which is backed by Ed Anderson, who's the chairman of Yorkshire Building Society. So we're pretty much the underdogs in this race, and to have won with the help of Mark O'Brien and a great team who have worked alongside me about a year and a half. Has been absolutely fantastic. And again, to come here and speak to you guys about sort of what we plan on doing over the next few years, hopefully it's a real privilege, it's a real honor, and thank you so much. Mark and I developed a press release and a thank you email about 2 weeks before the announcement was made, because we were very, very confident we'll win. And I said to him, as part of our post-award strategy, I said to him I wasn't too keen on engaging in debates or dialogue about the concept of local television, or if local television is going to be viable or not. And the reason why is we've moved on from that now. The licenses are going to be awarded and local television is going to happen. What I do now is I stay focused, and I stay focused about what it is we're going to deliver over the next 12 years. And I had a chat with Mark and I said, what should we prepare for the students today? And I had to go back to his email, and my best email, and it said we should speak about our plans, hopes, and aspirations for the local television station. And that works really well for me because that's what I'd like to do. I like to stay focused on delivering primarily two aims and objectives. The first is we are going to deliver a successful local television station for the city of Leeds. And I'll explain why in a second. I have no doubts about that. The second thing is we are going to deliver the most successful local television station in the UK. And I am quite confident about that. How do we measure success? We measure success not so much in terms of the sustainable revenue that keeps the company afloat, but also to the degree that we can engage with the community. And the channel is a good pulse, some measure of how accurate a reflection is of the people of Leeds, their humor, their interests, the culture of the city, the history of the city. We also measure success to the degree that we can create a new platform for small and medium-sized businesses in terms of unprecedented, affordable airtime slots for businesses. I believe media has always been an economic driver for growth for cities, and it's no different in Leeds. I think in this city, there's a real gap between the creative industry and the business industry. And one of the things which we're confident of achieving for Made in Leeds is to create a platform whereby creativity can be celebrated in this city. I think, speaking to some of my friends in the creative industry in Leeds, sometimes the business industry sort of get in touch with creatives if they have to design a website or have to deal with a cool advertising agency. But we want to create a situation whereby creativity produces a direct result or a measurable effect on the success of businesses by connecting businesses, showcasing goods and services, and just being able to deliver, say, for example, exciting local television commercials, which when it's broadcast, businesses can immediately measure the responses based upon the people that have watched and so forth. So it's a very, very exciting time for us, and the model which we have in terms of running the station is a combination of very, very experienced broadcast staff, sort of working with a very, very, well, no, not very, very young, but a young and dynamic team. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of my staff have never actually seen a printing press before. The sort of individuals who we'll be looking to employ are primarily people who are dynamic, understand how media is converging, will bring in multiple skills, straddling photography, graphic design, journalism, editing, camera work, sound, and are able to deliver a collection of services, primarily 3 out of the 6 or 7 that I've just mentioned. We'd also be looking to, well, before I mention it, I also have to say one thing which is a massive challenge for us as a local television station, and this could be relevant to you as well. Certainly something to think about. In an ideal situation, we would have had a partnership with the Yorkshire Evening Post because they by far one of the largest news gatherers in the city. Possibly we might still be in talks with them, but so far that hasn't been the case. That leaves us with a kind of dilemma really, which is how do we develop a news gathering strategy from scratch, a new city, a new local television platform. Now, the way we've sort of approached this challenge is to look at how news is gathered and how news is broadcast. And we see news as a social process. In other words, people identify stories, they share it on Facebook, they talk about it on Twitter, they leave comments on blogs and so forth. And so we want to develop a 21st century local multimedia news gathering strategy that incorporates everyone in the community in terms of their contribution to news, their participation in the development of the news process, and their willingness to work hand in hand with the staff of the newsroom. And so it's a new project for us. There's not been any successful local television station in the United Kingdom. I think the closest that has been Channel M, which was primarily backed by their local newspaper, but it ran into some problems. So this is new, and while the journey is unknown, it's certainly going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very, very exciting. The things we hope for is that the people of Leeds will give local television a chance, and that they'd embrace this concept, that they'll allow us to grow in front of them. We can worm our ways into their living rooms and their sofas. Generally, the response to local television has been quite positive. It's not been as bad as some other cities, but I think Leeds is quite unique in terms of just the personality of the people who live here. And I'm quite confident that eventually, as long as we keep people informed and involved in the development of the local television station and its operations, and as long as we do things differently by creating a higher level of transparency in what we do, tweeting about what we're doing, about our aspirations, maybe even do a Leeds Next Top Presenter sort of competition, and get audiences involved in our selection process, and give the people of Leeds a sense of ownership about the television channel and about the television platform. We're quite positive that all those factors playing their role, we would deliver a great service to the city of Leeds. And that's sort of where we are at the moment. Mark is going to speak a bit about our programming ideas. But before he does so, I'll just touch very briefly on sort of job opportunities for students. There is space in terms of job creations for producers, admin, camera crew, journalists, video journalists, and news directors. And if you want some more information about job opportunities, you can just go to our website at www.madeinleeds.tv, upload your CV, select any particular area that you're interested in. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of interest for jobs for the local television station. If somebody asked me in particular what I was looking for, especially if you're a post-grad or undergrad looking for an opportunity to work in a local television station, try and be clear about what it is you'd like to do. Try and develop your skills in any capacity before you join. Give you a typical example. I mean, how many people come from a technical background, or is this all journalism students? Any production students here? So just research in journalism?
Well, I'm journalism, but also interested in the production side as well.
Okay. The introduction of local television in Leeds and in any other city would lead to the increase in the demand for local television commercials for local businesses. That in turn will result in people asking production companies to make TV commercials and so forth. Now, the way I learned production was just going out there and doing things myself. There's nothing stopping anyone from going into a local shop, offering to do a commercial for them, whether it's web or whatever, putting the piece together and developing your skills and then pitching yourself out as an independent production business to make local television commercials. As far as journalists are concerned, local knowledge is really, really important in a newsroom. Who is the leader of the council? Who is the chief executive of Leeds City Council? Who are the political parties? Information about the councillors and so forth. These play an important role. Local knowledge does play an important role if you're going to be working in a newsroom. And that's it for me, really. Any questions before I sit down? I was in a panel at Leeds University about a couple of weeks ago, and on the panel were a researcher from X Factor and Strictly Come Dancing, and they had a lot more questions for them than they did for me, and I was slightly hoping it'd be different here, but you know. So.
How is it? Are they all digital channels now? These local TV channels? Is that how they're going out?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't cover that. The television channel is going to be on Freeview Channel 8, which is very, very important, EPG prominence, because in the past, if you were on, say, channel 5, 6, 3, you know, the higher the EPG number, the more unlikely it is that people will eventually come across your channel. So having it on Channel 8 on Freeview, it's a massive advantage. We're also going to be on Sky 117. We're also going to be on Virgin and Freesat. And so all of these platforms ensures that we reach a wider audience, a wider number of people. So, yeah.
And what's the catchment area of Made in Leeds, geographically?
It's about 1.1 million homes. But the geographical area also covers Wakefield, Huddersfield, Halifax, and Dewsbury. Yeah. Hopefully November this year. A lot of our activities will happen about 3 months before November.
What makes Made in Leeds different from other local stations that have tried and failed?
EPG prominence is an important aspect, especially the fact that we didn't have to pay for it, which if we did would have cost a lot of money. Technology, the ability to deliver high quality, low cost production. The way media is changing. So we have content distributed across iPads, mobile phones, television. The YouView platform, so we're going to be on Freeview too. Essentially that means that we don't have to stick to the traditional linear television that most people have been used to. In other words, you can watch our channels 1 week past, you can rewind. It's essentially a VOD service, which is pretty much reflective of most people's television viewing habits these days. So all of those factors makes it a lot more viable that we can succeed. Yeah.
How many people are you looking to employ?
20. And with about, it's quite small. It's quite small. We'll be running a very tight ship. And most people who'll be working for us, there wouldn't be much difference between that and maybe slave trade or something. I'm just joking. I'm not going to scare you, but it's going to be a tough slog. And
Are you looking to, if it's a success in, say, November 2014, would you look at increasing that workforce?
Yes, yes. If we, over the next couple of years, if we are successful to the degree that we generate more revenue, then we'd invest it towards more journalists covering a wider area.
Do you anticipate your responsibilities being solely news-based, or do you expect to diversify into entertainment, sport, so on and so forth?
Mark will speak about our programming, but just sort of stealing a bit of his thunder. We're covering news. We're going to have a daily magazine show every day. We are in partnership with a company called the Square Ball. I don't know if anybody knows them. No? Fair enough. Square Ball are one of the largest independent football organizations in Leeds. So we're doing a sports program. We're doing programs on cooking, property, entertainment, music, fashion, and that sort of thing. So it's quite a wide, a broad range of programs. Everything that we could do to cater to the unique interests of people in Leeds.
Are you aiming at a specific age range? Who's your audience? Who are you aiming to be your audience?
The programs would be developed according to people's age, genders, and viewing habits. So, for example, our magazine show is sort of, I don't know, maybe that's not a good idea. Say our fashion, music, and entertainment programs would obviously cater to a much younger audiences, so between 18 and 35. A sports program, I guess, is in terms of audience profile would be ABC1 individuals between the ages of 24 and 45. So that sort of thing, really. Yep.
Are you going to be running like 24/7, or is there sort of on and off times?
It's a 24-hour schedule. Our commitment is to 2 hours of original local content each day, but we'll be looking to produce a lot more than that. The rest of the schedule will be filled by third-party programs which would acquire. Because as you can imagine, it'll be almost impossible to fill a 24-hour schedule with content about Leeds.
So what sort of programs are you hoping to get? What sort of third-party programs are you hoping?
I could tell you, but I'll have to kill you. As we go towards, closer towards launch, a raft of our programs which will acquire, it'll be in the public domain. So no, I'm not going to kill you, I'm just joking. And, that's not very good. This is going live as well. I think it was the lady, yeah?
Yeah, so you said you're going to have advertising to generate revenue.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop the advertisers kind of taking or putting their imprint on the shows, sort of separating the content and the advertisers? Because you could be making programs that's going to help these advertisers, and you have to have a very fine, a very definite line between the advertisers and the money they're putting in and the shows that you're making.
There's a
Otherwise, it's just going to become a glorified advertising vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a distinction between advertising and sponsorship. So the typical model for advertising is like anything you'd watch on television. 30 seconds before the program, 30 seconds during intervals, and that sort of thing. We will be looking at securing a lot of sponsorship partners for programs, in which case it'll just be a simple case of who sponsors Come Dine With Me? I think it's that wine or something. That sort of thing, really. So say, for example, our fashion programs most likely would generate interest from the club sponsors or people who sell drinks and that sort of thing. So there will be a sharp distinction. There is a lot of flexibility in terms of product placements for local television as well, so we'll be using to utilize that as a source of revenue streams for the business. Hopefully it's not going to be as obvious as in America, but it would be there, yes. You know, television is changing, and the way we deliver our program is also going to change. One of the ideas which we have is for a quiz show. We identify that people sort of watch television, and at the same time they have they're on second screens, either their iPads or Twitters and so forth. So one of the ideas which we have is for people watching our programs to download a particular application, and then they can begin to determine the outcome of certain programs or quiz shows. So they can log in via their iPad, make certain comments, make requests to the participants in the game show. And so it's a new kind of interaction that goes on between live television content and viewership. And this is new in television. And these are the sort of things which we'll be looking to explore for local television, as well as seeding shows before we put them out to air, getting ideas and generating momentum about what people think about programs and so forth. And the audience will play a significant part in our programming ideas. We'll test it out and see what people think. And if it's crap, it goes out the window. If it's great, then we'll just keep on airing it. So our programming ideas are pretty much in tune with, well, hopefully we'll be in tune with what people are like or what they're discussing and so forth.
How are you going to go about managing expectations, Isi? Because there's such a buzz in Leeds about this whole new project, and there's so many people, so many high hopes about what could come. And yet, you're working, as you've already made plain, with very limited resources. How are you going to kind of manage that process of keeping the community on side when you can't be necessarily doing live broadcasts from West Yorkshire Playhouse on day one?
I don't have any problems with managing expectations. I'm fully confident we'll deliver a very, very exciting television service. Now people will just have to, just sit back, relax, and judge us when we start delivering content. We've got a very, very creative team, great programming ideas, and the partnerships which we have with independent production companies to partner with other sponsors allows us the flexibility to develop programming ideas that are outside of our budgets. So, for example, the partnership we have with the Square Ball. The Square Ball are a team of 4 football commentators who have a lot of experience in the Leeds United football team, have a lot of authority within Leeds United football fans. They have their podcasts, they have their own magazine, so they have an established brand. So they have traction in terms of their audiences. Now, if we said we had to produce our own sports show from scratch, then we need to put in a lot of resources and all of that. So the way we sort of worked around that was to partner with brands, independent production companies, and work with them with a very tight budget to deliver content. And that's what we're going to be doing. Say, for example, an organization like maybe Hebe Media. They've got great ideas about the fashion and the music and the entertainment side of Leeds. We want to tap into their local knowledge, tap into their online presence, help them shape programming concepts, maintain a certain standard of production values, and deliver great content. Now, we can do that. We can do that for local television. And finally, what I do want to say is, it's apart from news, which always has to be on point and has to be delivered to us, has to be taken seriously. We're just going to have a lot of fun. It's local TV. We're not going to take ourselves too seriously. We're just going to allow the audiences watch us grow, develop, get into the momentum of things. I think the most important thing for us is if we have the goodwill of the city, then they'll give us that chance to really connect with them. And I think if they do give us that time to sort of adapt, I think we'd eventually find our pace and deliver what it is, a very exciting service for this city. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yeah, maybe just to build on it then, how much of the programming will have what you might call a Leeds accent? Because you're also part of the bigger made television outfit. Certain aspects of programming are going to be shared between Newcastle and Cardiff, and I think it's at Bristol. I forget where they all are. Yeah. So, I mean, just back to the original question: how are you going to give your programmes a Leeds accent then?
For us, the locality of the channel is more about the actual flow than the show. So with the partnership which we have with Radio Air, you'll have 90-second news updates on the hour. That gives people who are watching a sense of localism. So even if we decide to buy a 1976 series of the Icelandic murderer or whatever, and sorry, that's not a good example. Whatever content we deliver, which is not necessarily directly related to Leeds, you'd always be reminded throughout the entire 24-hour schedule that you're watching a Leeds channel. That's the first thing. And those 90-second news updates will eventually be substituted as we develop with in-vision Leeds presenters. We'll certainly be looking for presenters with Leeds accents. We'll certainly be looking for presenters who understand Leeds and know Leeds very well. One of the presenters who we'll be bringing on board is Jojo Kelly. She's fantastic, great presenter, great local knowledge, a proper Leeds girl, and already has some traction with the Leeds audiences. So, that's what we'll do. I mean, it's going to be a local television channel. It's going to be a platform to showcase, to celebrate local talent, local voices, and local skills, really. And the content which we'll be delivering or producing would capture the particular humor of Leeds. The people who watch the Leeds, the channel, I'm confident, would be comfortable with the content that we deliver as being, to some measure, a reflection of Leeds City and the Leeds people as a whole. So, sorry.
So how then do you fit in Wakefield and Dewsbury into the station that's called Made in Leeds? And do you want everybody to be looking at Leeds?
Yeah, that's a tough one. When you call yourself Made in Leeds, then you sort of shoot yourself in the foot, really, because our geographical patch covers Huddersfield, Halifax, Dewsbury, and Wakefield, like you rightfully pointed out. For the first 3 years, at least, we'll focus on Leeds as far as news is concerned. The reason why is it's just more to do with the resources thing. We're just not really in the position to have Huddersfield news and Halifax news. And apart from that, once we start doing that, you're getting closer to more regional news or sub-regional news as opposed to local television. So we really want to focus on Leeds for the first few years, and then we start exploring ways in which we can include news or other events within our program schedule for Made in Leeds. But as far as anything else other than news is concerned, like programming ideas, entertainment, sports, we'll be looking to include information about Huddersfield and the other coverage areas. Yeah.
So it's sort of you say we've concentrated on Leeds, so will we be seeing you out and about in the local areas, places like Harehalls and things like that, just promoting the area?
Yes, I mean, there'd be a lot of, it might seem a bit quiet between now and 3 months before we launch. We'll certainly be active on the social media platform, but 3 months before we launch, there'll be the massive bank in terms of an aggressive marketing campaign. You'd see us in the city, there'll be billboards, and we'll take a presence, publicizing ourselves in newspapers and the radios and so forth. So, yeah. Richard?
I think you tweeted, or Tom Reardon tweeted, that you'd had a meeting with the council. I was just wondering if there's anything you can tell us about the outcome of that.
I think the 7th person that is asking me that now. It just sounds like some sort of secret mafia thing going on. But, we did have a meeting with Tom and some of his staff of Leeds City Council. It was important for Tom to get in touch, considering the influence a new local media operator would have within the Leeds City region. And the purpose of the meeting really was to it was more of a general feeling each other up meeting, finding out, it would be so much better if this wasn't going out live. But, It was just more to explore synergies that could exist, and give us the opportunity to demonstrate, if we can, how we could deliver more effective marketing, more effective use of their marketing budgets for the council. Just stuff like that, really.
I was wondering particularly, I know the council is either doing or planning to webcast the council meetings.
Yeah.
Would that form part of your schedule?
We'd like it to, yes. I was having a chat with Mike about that, really. You just have to be honest with me. How many people here would watch a live council meeting? That's the same thing I said to Mike, but you know, the thing is, there are people who would watch a live council meeting. I'm not one of them, but as a platform, we just have to accommodate as many people's interests and as varied and as broad an interest as possible. I have had meetings with certain individuals and organizations, and they said, well, we would only like to be affiliated with this channel if it's cool, if it's hip, if it does a lot of, and you know, we're just not in the position to do that. What we do, especially because we're sort of a, to a certain degree, I wouldn't say hybrid, but we're a commercial company, but we also deliver a public service in terms of our commitments to local news, 1 hour per day. But one of our remit is to be a reflector of the community that we serve. And so we'd like to develop programming ideas that reflect everyone's interests, whether you're in Hare Hills or Woodley, or you're black or white or Asian, or you're Christian or you're Hindu. We just want to create a platform for everyone to voice their interests, really.
Yeah, an interesting point is picking up what you're saying about who'd watch a council meeting. There's two ways, really, of programming a media service, isn't there? There's the idea of trying to get someone in who's going to stick with Made in Leeds all evening, from 7 o'clock through till 10 or midnight or whatever. There's also the kind of approach that something like Bradford Community Broadcasting take, where they say each of their programmes is discrete, and they expect people to tune in and tune out.
Yeah.
I know you've said you can't go into too much detail about the programming at this stage, but as a broad concept, are you going to be appointment to view television, or are you come and see what we've got on tonight television?
You have to explain that again. I mean, are you asking in terms
I'll
of...
explain. I'll try. It's Bradford Community Broadcast. I'm a radio man. I don't do television. I'll leave it to you experts, yeah? Bradford Community Broadcasting. They say we have a programme for the Polish community, which is adjacent to a programme about origami, which is adjacent to a sports preview. No audience is going to necessarily follow on from one to the other, but different discrete groups go in at different times.
All right.
Are you trying to keep an audience right the way through till midnight, or is it going to be that kind of segmented approach?
Some of our programming strategy would be geared towards keeping people for at least an hour or two. So, for example, we have a daily magazine show which will be broadcast at 6:30, and it'll be light entertainment and good feel factor about the community and Leeds, the events that are going on. And the strategy behind that is to get as many people watching at 6:30, grab away the Look North audience, and get them to stick to our 7 o'clock news. So that's an example of how we want to keep the flow going. And I have no doubt that people would sort of dip in and out of the television channel. And, you know, it's just part of people's viewing habits these days. Not only do they dip in and out of channels, but they watch programs as and when they want, as in terms of the VOD fashion. So, gosh, I don't think, when you consider what's out there, it's unlikely that someone's going to stay from 9 o'clock in the morning till very late at night. But we will continue to look at people's viewing habits and position programs in such a way that people stay for as long as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you consider doing an on-demand service where people could catch up with programmes at, say, any time they want on the go?
7 days history in terms of reversible EPG. Yeah. So if you miss something today or last week, on the UView platform, you can go back to it 7 days past. Yeah.
Were you using, I'm sorry, were you using any web platforming?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. One of our technology partners is IOCO, and they built BBC iPlayer, Channel 4OD, and so forth. So we'll have a solid platform where people can watch content online. Yeah.
With the same 7 days or 7 days?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Drop me an email. Yeah. Sarah?
To what extent will your platform create opportunities for other Leeds-based independents in terms of content or commercial production?
Any company who delivers production for television commercials will do well to position themselves to explore the increase in demand that we hope will come up from a local television platform. That's all I can say. We're looking to see a demand in television commercial production. That's the first thing. So what's the first question again?
What content and commercial production?
If you have an idea which is fantastic and it's really great, and you approach us and you say, look, I've got this great idea for a talk show, or it's the next big thing, next come down with me in Leeds or whatever, and it costs this X amount of money. There are ways in which we can either try and find sponsorship for the program, or you acquire sponsorship for the program to cover your production costs. What we want to do is try and outsource as many programs as possible to production companies, whilst at the same time not necessarily get free content for them, but establish a structure whereby they can generate some revenue for it. Because they benefit from delivering content which they enjoy. We benefit because we broadcast content that we feel is appealing to the Leeds audience. And it creates the opportunities for aspiring filmmakers, television execs, and so forth. Yes, Mike?
Is it when it comes to the 3-month launch,
yeah,
and you're going to be doing newspaper ads and maybe TV ads, plus advertising, whatever, what is the core message that you're going to be putting across? What's the slogan that, for you, sums up Made in Leeds TV?
I don't know. I don't know yet. We've really had to think about it, and I mean, even coming up with the name Made in Leeds, we had to really think hard about about the branding for that. But in terms of a catchphrase, who knows? We might just put it out there to the Leeds audience and say, well, help us, guys. What do you think is a motto that accurately reflects a local television service for the people of Leeds? So, you've just given me an idea. Thanks. Yeah.
As, going to the commercial model and revenue and all of that, what measuring is going to be taking place for advertisers to sense that they're getting return on their investment short of their own bottom line improving?
Just have to be phone calls, We're not BAB rated, so we don't have any audience measuring figures for local television. But that is good in a way because it makes us directly accountable to our clients. So businesses will be in a position to measure their success if they put out ads and they can see an increase in demand for their services and products. And that's how we're going to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
What sort of program ideas do you have for like entertainment, like music stuff? What sort of programs are going to be about that?
Well, we've got an idea, for example, for it's a show where local bands perform. We have a recording studios at the Leeds Media Centre, and it's a show whereby bands come in and perform, and people can text their preferred band, and they'll have some sort of it's almost like a game show where bands encourage people to vote for them or text for them, and then we generate a percentage of revenue from the text message to help fund their albums and that sort of thing. So those are sort of ideas. As well as the usual music shows, which would cover, let me say, like the opening of the Leeds Arena, behind the scenes, interview the artists that come into Leeds, and that sort of thing, really. But I can only imagine that would be really popular, and I'm hoping that a lot of very, very talented acts could, launch a global career on the back of a a local television station, and I don't see why not. Any more questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Mark, do you want to come and just talk a bit about our programs? Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that.
Everybody, I hope you can hear me. I hope all the many people tuning in at home can hear me as well on this. I'm glad that everybody has so many questions because it leaves me with very little to say and I can go and have my tea quite soon. But I do want to say just a little bit more. We've already talked a bit about the programming, about what this station is going to look and feel like, and that's obviously something that takes a very long time to get right. Even after we start broadcasting, hopefully in November, there will still be a long period of experimenting, seeing what we can do. Nothing like this has ever done before. There are comparisons to Channel M to online stations elsewhere, but something like this is a completely new and interesting proposition. The only stipulation that Ofcom gave us, and gave all the channels, all the local channels, is that you can't have any pornography, which is as simple as that. There's no question marks over that, no matter how much money it may make. We can do anything we like on a platform like this. We can come up with any programs, work with any groups of people to make content that's interesting and relevant to all the people of Leeds, which is not such an easy task in itself, even though we are bound by geography. Even in this room alone, we've got postgraduates who are in their early 20s. We've got people who are, I wouldn't even dare to guess how old some of the people are, but we've got such a broad range of people just in one room by itself. And so dealing with those interests, coping with those interests, seeing how we can address all the people, all the groups of people across the city is a challenging thing. We are going to produce 2 hours of, produce and broadcast 2 hours of original in-house content per day. The primetime schedule will be filled with content that we make ourselves in-house at the Leeds Media Centre at the bottom of Chapeltown Road, very close to the city centre and in a very dynamic part of town. We have 1 hour of news planned for 1 hour of live news planned every evening. I want to talk a bit more about that in a second because I think that's something that's going to be important to journalism students. But as part of all of this, we had to come up with our own programming ideas, our own strands, and talk to Ofcom about the things that we wanted to work on, the things that we wanted to produce. Isi spoke a little bit about the partnership with the Square Ball, a Leeds United fanzine, very prominent, very bolshy. I know you guys had Jeff Stelling here early in the week, think Soccer Saturday, but full of Leeds people and no people like Paul Merson or anybody else getting in the way. That's the kind of programme you're talking about. The Square Ball, when they make their programme, that is, it's a simple fact, going to be the biggest and best thing that we do. It's not necessarily going to be the most interesting if you're not a football fan, but the fact of the matter is that as soon as something goes up on the Yorkshire Evening Post or the Yorkshire Post website about Leeds United, there's a massive flood of people talking about it, a massive flood of people interested in it. The viewing figures, I'm going to put a bet on right now. I'm not a betting man, but I'm going to put a bet on that the viewing figures for the Square Ball programme are going to be through the roof, and anything that the rest of us try and do, we'll just be playing catch-up with them. But that's not to say we're not going to try. We have in the pipeline programmes on cookery, programmes on property, programmes taking old formats and putting them on the screen. The cookery programme, which Isi mentioned briefly, we're working with Jojo Kelly of Capital FM to host a programme which is still very much in development, but we'll be teaching people like me who can't cook how to cook, and bringing all the possible interesting dishes, all the dishes that your grandma can teach you, that Leeds grandmas know how to do, and putting them on the screen. We're going to be producing a magazine show, which is in some ways a flagship programme. Every evening at 6:30 when you tune in on Freeview Channel 8 or Sky 117, the first thing that you'll see is a magazine show, a kind of localised one show, something that's light-hearted, something that's entertaining, interesting, a mix of arts and culture and human interest stories, something that's worth watching for everyone, something that aims to appeal to everyone, and aims to bring people in the evening after they've come home from work. They want to sit down, they want to sit down and see local faces that are convivial, that are coming into their households so that they can settle down for the rest of the evening broadcasting for the channel. We have other formats planned. We have a pub quiz format programme where we hope to go around all of the pubs, all of the ale houses of this fine area of ours, inside which I'm sure you're as well aware as I am, there are a great deal of interesting characters who will provide us with no end of content worth watching. They'll provide us with a few interesting discussions with Ofcom when we accidentally broadcast a rude word or two, but we hope to keep that to a minimum. These are some of the things that we're already working on, things that we want to produce in-house, things that we want to do ourselves. But a channel, a television channel, the true meaning of the word channel is, and this is where I get tested for my dictionary definitions here, a channel is a conduit. A channel is a spot through which, a hole through which different providers, different people who want to make content, different producers can broadcast to a wider audience. We've already been in touch with, we've already had people approaching us with all kinds of interesting ideas, people who already run online television stations for the local area, for the region, for the rest of the country, people who have interesting ideas and want to put content out there, want to simply do something interesting and captivating for the city. We are fundamentally, even though we do our own in-house work, we will be providing that platform for interesting content makers, for producers, to be broadcast to the widest possible audience in this region. As it is said, 1.1 million homes. It's a vast region and it covers a lot of people. The fundamental point, and I say this, I first got involved in this whole project when I was only just out of university. I am a journalist of sorts, whatever that awful rude word means. I don't know what kind of talks you've heard this week, what interesting, I've had glimpses of some of the things that people have said about journalism and about the difficulties, about the challenges facing the industry in general, and particular journalists in particular. One of the problems of being a journalist, one of the problems of working in a newsroom is typically that you are constrained to those particular four walls that you're working inside. So much of the job is taken up, particularly in print media, so much of the job is taken up by making phone calls, trying to get the right quote. There was a halcyon period for a lot of journalists when they could go to the pub and pick up stories, when they could go to the courts and hear interesting people talk about interesting things. In a sense, whilst doing something very modern, doing something very new, I believe that our journalists and our producers are in many ways doing something quite traditional as well. They're going to be part of the community. We're going to have patch reporters who cover their own particular area of town. I want this to be a station, and Isi wants this to be a station. We all want this to be the kind of station where if your grandmother is upset about the failure of the council to deal with a pothole down the road, she will know, I'm going to call Mark O'Brien, I'm going to call this particular producer, I'm going to call this journalist at Made in Leeds, who I know about, whose name I know, who I've seen down my street. Journalists are fundamentally good guys. It doesn't seem like it a lot of the time, but journalists and producers, people who work in the media, do it because they want to share a story, because they want to do something interesting. They want to talk to interesting people. They're not the story, but the interesting people are the story, and they want to connect their stories with other people. I've got that same principle, and I think the channel has that same principle. We want to be in the heart of the community. We want to be in the heart of every community across Leeds. And hopefully, with any luck, with a bit of inspiration and with a lot of creativity from, like Isi said, young dynamic people like the people in this room, that's exactly what we'll do. Thank you, guys. I suspect all the possible questions you have ever possibly thought about local television were answered by Isi, but anybody else? Yes, there.
You said that the Square Ball is going to be a flagship programme.
Say that again, sorry, what programme?
Your flagship programme.
Yeah.
Your big programme.
It will be a big programme.
How heavily will Yorkshire cricket, Leeds Rhinos, Leeds Carnegie, that sort of thing, will they be featured as well? Obviously not in that programme, but in another sense.
We're still thinking about how exactly to do that. We've already, different people have spoken to us about that, about how other sports, other professional sports in the region, also how all the local amateur teams in the region, all the youngsters who are playing different sports, how they can be catered for, because there's a lot of interesting stuff there, as well as great television, as well as fun sport to watch. There's some fascinating stories from all of those. We're still very much working on it. It's a work in progress. I think that's all I can say. We've had producers who are already working on formats with other sports who've talked to us, like I said, of providing content that we will not do in-house, but we will aim to support them by connecting them with sponsors, connecting them with anybody we can to produce this stuff. But for a city that's got the rugby league, well, we used to be the world champions until the weekend, for a city that's got a fantastic historic cricket club, and for a city that's got so many local amateur teams, I think We've got to have them on board. We've got to be theirs as well. Yeah. Yeah.
We had Stephen Duncan from Calendar.
I saw.
And of course, they're beloved, you know, really, really high rated, really respected news presenters. Between them and BBC Leeds and BBC Radio Leeds and all of that, what kind of room does that leave for an independent startup like yourselves to kind of try and go toe to toe with these kind of established names?
It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take you asked specifically about the presenters. It's going to mean that our presenters, our faces, are going to have to be out there. They're going to have to become staples of the community, whether you like it or not. I'm sure we'll have some presenters who many people will be rather upset by the look of, but who some people will really, really love. We'll have our Jeremy Paxmans of Leeds. We'll have our I'm trying to think of anybody else. We'll have our who's popular these days? I don't know. We'll have everybody. We'll have the whole gamut of people who will be on the station and who will become part of the city community, part of the popular consciousness. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, but the fact is still that the question more broadly takes us to exactly what the point of a local channel is. And Isi never really wanted to talk about that. It's going to happen anyway. All that we can do is make sure that we do it the best way that we can. I personally I'm a Leeds boy. I've seen Calendar from a young age. I remember when Richard Whiteley was Richard Whiteley on Calendar? Am I confusing with somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
Of course he was. You see, I'm glad that the veterans put me right on that. I've been watching Look North since I was a little boy as well, and they are part of what I know the city to be about. BBC Radio Leeds as well. When Radio Leeds came about, it's an interesting comparison. Forgive me if I wander off into just thinking out loud right now, but it's an interesting comparison looking at previous local operations that have started up commercial radio in the 80s with Radio Air, and even BBC Radio Leeds when that was set up in '68. The station manager there at the time was a guy called Phil Sidey, who wrote a very funny and very interesting book called Hello, Mrs. Butterfield, in which he spoke about the early days. He introduces it by talking about how a journalist from London, very sniffy, very about the sheer notion of local radio up in the provinces. Why do they need radio? What are they going to do with it? They're just going to talk in their own accents. It's irrelevant to anybody. She came up to the city and found out about Radio Leeds, got to know the people involved in it, and wrote, "The Goon Show is not dead. It's alive and well, and it's called BBC Radio Leeds." And you know, when those guys set up, there's one anecdote that he tells as well about how the Yorkshire Post and the Yorkshire Evening Post would never go anywhere near Radio Leeds. They wouldn't talk about Radio Leeds. It's nothing to do with us. You know, they were the veterans. They were the establishment. And in order to get the name Radio Leeds into the papers, Phil Sidey and his team bought I think it was a greyhound or either a greyhound or a racehorse, one of them anyway, put it in all the races so that they had to put the name Radio Leeds in the newspaper. I don't think we're going to be buying any greyhounds or any racehorses. It's not a bad idea. I'd love to have my own racehorse. But we've got so much scope. I think from this long-winded explanation of this answer to a completely different question, we've got a lot of scope to get in there. We have whole new platforms now that weren't available in the 80s and the 60s to us, new ways of spreading our message, new ways of getting out there. And it all starts with things like this. It all starts us with people like me, people like Isi, and all the team that we'll have after the summer, getting out there and talking about it. Richard?
Yeah, Mark, just thinking about how you're going to fill this hour of news. I mean, the guys you see in the front row here are going to be producing Leeds Today, which is our webcast that we do every summer. After 3 weeks of doing that each summer, they're going to be on their knees. They're going to be knackered. Now, all right, you've got a proper channel. You're going to be number 8 on Preview. You get more kudos from doing that than we ever do from a webcast. But how are you going to keep the content going 365 days a year to fill an hour of live news every evening?
It's going to be incredibly hard work, is how. I've watched, you say that there's not enough kudos, but I've watched the show before. I think I've said to you before that I've watched it before, and I've given you kudos. But as I said to the gentleman up there, I think a lot of what we're still working on, a lot of what we're developing, it's still very much a work in progress. Exactly how the prospect of 6 full-time journalists are going to fill that kind of news content is something that we're working on, and we're working on making something that's attractive, something that's compelling, as well as having fundamentally good journalism.
I mean, realistically, is it going to be a programme at 7 and a live repeat at 9?
It's not so much a live repeat. I mean, I think there's scope to do interesting things with it. I think a programme at 7, where we have packages talking about the particular issues, where we have studio discussion as well, serious discussion as well, not something that's more developed and something that has more scope for a bit more inquiry than the short maximum 3 minutes packages on Look North and Calendar have. Followed by a news programme at 9, which perhaps may focus on particular issues and go in greater depth in some of them, or may do the opposite, may look at far more issues depending on what's happening any particular day. Look North and Calendar have, and even Leeds Today, when you guys are doing it, you're working on a very package-driven kind of show. Whilst that's still an important feature of our news coverage, it's got to be. We're going to experiment with new ideas and new ways of doing a local news show.
So how does that dovetail then to the sofa segment when you've got Jojo or whoever doing the conversation with people? How do you define the difference between what goes on the sofa and what goes on the news show?
You mean when you talk about the sofa, are you talking about the discussion?
Half an hour of news and then there's half an hour of discussion every evening. Have I misunderstood that?
It's not necessarily as strict as that. It's more. I mean, the 2 different news shows are currently planned for schedule at 7 and 9. Between those, we also have the other programs, the other in-house produced programs that I've talked about. They are fundamentally the news shows. Whilst they will have the same kind of branding, they will still be made in Leeds news. They will still be heavy, solid, hopefully really good stuff. We will also, the shows in between those are fundamentally their own shows, just in the same way that if you go on the BBC, they've got their Look North at 6:30, they've got their local updates at 10:25, and they've got other programmes between those. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
The BBC funding for news, I gathered from the application that Made TV put in was that you wouldn't rely on that. Can you clarify, are you going to be using that or not?
We will.
I
think it was the Leeds United Football Club bid that said we would not be relying on the BBC funding.
Right.
We'll be relying on their funding and anybody else who's willing to fund us.
Answers that.
I think that partly answers that last question.
Yeah.
The fact that there's funding there to pay for people covering stories from the BBC will take some of the weight.
To an extent, I mean, it's not as clear-cut a situation as simply the BBC doles out a load of money and we do whatever we like with it. There's going to be, we really hope, and I think we're going to secure this, a much more positive dynamic between us and the BBC, ITV for that matter as well, where we have a positive relationship where the funds that are available will be the current plan anyway. The existing plan is that the funds that are available from the BBC will be to pay for content that the BBC wishes to take from us at any particular point. If we do a programme or a segment, something on, say, the Chapeltown Carnival, because it's right next door to where we are, and they decide to look to us and covering that, then they can pay for that content and they can share it with their audiences. So that positive relationship is more important than simply a big pot of money that's going to be doled out. Anyone else? Lovely stuff. That's me done.
Great.
Thank you.